to our panelists to give us their sense of the health of the US patent industry today, given all the changes that Kevin and I'm sure everybody else will be talking about. So, to get more rolling, sir, do you want to introduce yourself and give us your sense? Where is the industry today?
I'm Bob Green. I run business development and partnerships with Liberty Global. We're, for those of you who don't know who Liberty Global is, we're a big international cable company. Nothing in the US, by the way. We're not Liberty Media. That's our sister company. The state of the pay television industry, however you want to define that, I think is very healthy. By virtue of, look who's, the size of this audience, as well as all the participants. I think it's in yet another phase of evolution. I know one of somebody says this most disruptive phase, and fortunately I've been around long enough to I remember the disruptive phase of satellite coming in and being dismissed, telcos coming in, being dismissed, Netflix coming in, being dismissed. And each time, the core incumbents rise up and react. So I think it's a very positive thing, even with all these challenges.
And obviously, for those of us who read the trade press, it would be easy to assume that the industry is in a state of near permanent crisis. I mean, cord cutting, cord shaving, forced consolidation, these sorts of things. Do you think that's just not the case, in other words?
No, I think all those things exist. But it doesn't mean that the business itself is unhealthy. I think it's just a question of who you define. The overall subscription levels are rising. Broadband subscription continues to rise. Mobile, continues to lose a lot of money, but it's still a very critical business. So these are all just sort of natural evolutions of the business.
So we're transitioning with no crisis.
No, I think a crisis is if you have no idea what to do with that. Right. That's a crisis for you.
Okay. Roy, what's your take? Where is the industry today? How healthy would you describe it to be?
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Bob has already said in the sense that I think the industry certainly is transitioning, but it's also very, very healthy. I think that the large macro trends that we've seen in the last 20 years, whether it's globalization or the tech revolution, they've essentially wiped out entire industries, right? So we're fortunate to be in an industry where the margins have always been incredibly healthy, right? Compared to other industries like food, fashion, tech, they're dealing with razor-slim margins, and that we're really fortunate to be not only in an industry that has survived and has proven to be incredibly resilient, but also really resonates with people. So I think that there's an emotional connection that people have to entertainment, whether you're providing entertainment to people as a distributor, whether you're actually creating as a content creator. So I think that it's an exciting time to be in the business. I think it's incredibly, there's a lot of opportunity available right now because we are transitioning, but I would certainly say that a lot of the doom and gloom that we hear is, whether it's Wall Street or whether it's other people within the industry, I think a lot of that is a bit overstated because of all the opportunity that actually is available.
And tell us a bit about your role at AMC, because I think you spend a lot of time, really trying to take stock of where the industry is.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I'm the distribution and affiliate sales team at AMC Networks. So we distribute AMC, BBC America, BBC World News, Sundance, IFC, and WeTV. And we also have, some niche SVOD services via Sundance Now. And we've also entered into a strategic partnership with RLJE Entertainment. So we're distributing Acorn TV as well as UFC. So I think it's been interesting for me because I'm relatively new to the industry, but kind of coming into it, just a little over 10 years ago, AMC was basically black and white films, right? It's classic television. So we were early on in investing in original content and really focusing upon creating a pie to create original content, and now we've seen this awakening, I guess, right, of incredible original programming across the board. So there's a tremendous amount of competition, but I think in terms of pivoting and understanding how you have to adapt and meet consumers to where they want to be able to watch content and how they want to consume content, that's something that we've consistently been thinking about, and it's something that we'll continue to hopefully adapt and think about going forward.
Okay, moving swiftly on. Scott, are we healthy, struggling, in transition? All of the above?
Yeah, look, I think that, a lot of what Bob said, right? Been going to these conferences for more than 25 years. And that's the constant that we talk about every single one is change, right? First it was the satellite guys, that's going to be a problem. Then it was digital cable, right? Anybody remember watching cable channels in the 90s and, oh my God, don't be on a digital tier, right? Now nobody knows what the digital tier is, and people give their IT for that distribution. So I think that's the constant, right? And who wins? Well, in an era of increased change, the consumer is usually who wins, and I think that's what you're seeing now. Is you're seeing consumers looking at a broader range of choices and making decisions based on the broader range of choices.
But would you acknowledge that the rate of change has accelerated very significantly?
Yeah, no, I think it has and it will continue to, right? The service that we launched a few months ago really, in our minds, is an extension of what we do on the broadcasting side of our business. It's reaching a very large audience and attaching advertising to it. That's the art of broadcasting.
And give us a quick sense of your role. What do you do at Sinclair that makes you grapple with these issues day in, day out?
So usually if you ask 3 people at Sinclair what I do, you'll get a round of laughter. So I sort of was the guy who sits between a lot of different things. So the emerging platforms, part of my title, really is meant to indicate things like our broadcast networks. So we have 4 over-the-air broadcast channels that we're either part of or own. We also have an OTT service we launched. So all the content that flows into that, and a lot of kind of forward-looking, what types of programming are we going to put on platforms that we're thinking about 3-5 years down the line.
Okay, let's jump to our 4th and final panelist, Gary. Give us your health check on the industry.
So the health check. I think if you look at the macro level, if you compare it today to 2009, you would not see a lot of decline, actually. Single-digit declines in the overall percentage of homes that are subscribed to a pay TV service. I think where you get a lot of the chaos, if you will, is sort of due to the escalation of broadband and the ability to deliver content differently, as well as these new aggregation platforms and a direct-to-consumer approach with these partners. You basically have just more choice. And honestly, customers now are getting used to that choice, so now you have higher expectations. But if you were to take the virtual MVPD subscriber base today and add that to the traditional pay cable, so this is what I call the larger bundle providers, the number of people subscribed to video services, if you take the SVODs out of it, is actually pretty stable. Now in our business, sure, we have challenges. I oversee video products for Charter Communications, and so we have just over 16 million video subscribers in the United States. And if you follow earnings, we've actually, I think, done a fairly good job of maintaining our subscriber base, but it's under pressure. And so really the question is, how do we address our products to make sure that customers can get what they want through better aggregation and delivery to alternate platforms? But I think video is rich right now, and I think people love it. And even people that don't subscribe to our services watch the same amount of video, right? Just on different platforms. So to me, that's more about, like Bob said earlier, it's how you play in it and how do you approach it. And that's where we have to be nimble.
So let's jump on to the kind of first big topic I want to try and unpick, which is the obvious question: who is really competing with who for what? And specifically, because this is a pay TV show, for subscribers. I mean, Bob, I think you spend a lot of time thinking about this in your role at Liberty. When you think about the sort of huge proliferation of choice, the kind of underlying, the basic reality is that most US consumers have far more choice about where they choose to spend their subscription bucks now than they used to 25 years ago. How do you see the competitive landscape? Are these products really substituting for one another, or actually do you think it's a more complicated set of relationships?
I think the answer to that is sort of a point in time that you look at. Today, let me just back up. One of the things, like I said, every year or every couple of years, you have this a la carte conversation. We got to get a la carte. I hate buying for all the channels I don't want to watch. I want a la carte. We all go to the exercise and to television. So to me, it's very interesting that today we have this proliferation of a la carte at very expensive rates, around $1. So I think that from a consumer standpoint, although they have a lot more choice, I think, as we all know, they're having a lot more difficulty figuring out what to subscribe to, how long to subscribe to it. I mean, churn is going to be a very interesting problem going forward for a lot of video suppliers. But as an aggregator, that's the role we do. We see that business still very robust. And in fact, I think, particularly in Europe is a lot different from here.
Sure.
In terms of the way regulators look at the business and all that. We just have to ask Google and Facebook and Apple. But I think the issue there is who's competing against? We're competing for the consumer. And the good thing about us, in our business, Gary's business, is you need a good part of our portfolio, which is broadcast.
Sure.
And so then I think it's just a function of what's a better user experience? How do you get good content? But I think we're all competing for that consumer, and the consumer ultimately will decide, what's the path of this resistance for themselves.
Gary, who's Trump's biggest and most important competitor?
Well, I think, and we've been pretty public about it, I think the market's splitting a little bit. We still compete with satellite tremendously, and the truth is we think we have a strategic advantage in terms of the service we offer on the video side and also broadband across the board. So that's a huge part of the business. And if you look at the trends for the traditional paid TV providers, if you will, you see they're dealing with a lot more headwinds than we are. And so that's a big piece of our business, and you can't lose sight on that. Right? You have to keep your eye on the ball there. And then as it relates to other services, look, I think anytime anyone can get a multi-channel video package for $28, that'll be competitive with us. The switching costs for people to go in and out of a virtual product like that is it's a lot lower in general. So we compete in that space, but we think we have products and services that are starting to compete very effectively in that space. I do think the competition overall is the entertainment, the time of day, the amount of time people have. And I think as you have more and more services, people are picking and choosing how they want to consume. I think live TV is competing with on-demand. I think those are the areas that you start competing with, and then you try to address those.
So, I think just one more thing, Gary said. You said you can get a virtual MVPD for $24.
Which you actually can.
It's not $24. It's like $75.
That's right. So what is
so? We always get compared to they're too expensive, but that's the total package.
Yeah, we have the best value package that you can get now on a third-party device in the entire market.
Scott, I'm guessing you have a slightly different perspective.
Yeah. Look,
Tell us what it is.
thinking about it purely in terms of who you're competing with for subscribers, from my perspective, it's a little too limited. Right? What we're really doing is we're competing for the next moment of your attention. And we're competing with people that have gotten really good at it. Facebook's really good at figuring out what you want to see next. Google is really good at figuring out what you want to know next, and Amazon's really good at figuring out what you want to buy next. And they use those tools to keep the attention of consumers. As long as the attention of consumers are on those platforms, they're not watching our channels, watching our networks. They're not necessarily subscribing to the same services that we partner with these guys on. That's really the battle. And as a broadcaster, yes, a lot of our revenue comes from the pay-TV business, but a lot of our revenue comes from advertising as well. And the advertising business, we feel that more directly because it impacts the attention of consumers, which is ultimately what sits behind an ad sale.
Roy, I'm guessing you have a similar perspective that when it comes to audiences, the competition has never been more intense.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, right now in terms of understanding who the competition is, I think it's difficult because I think the competition doesn't even know the answer to that question right now, right? Because you're seeing distributors get involved in original content. You're seeing distribution platforms like Apple, for example, invest tremendous amounts of money or commit to invest tremendous amounts of money into original content. So I think, right now it's a bit of a wait and see game to figure out who the actual players are and you're watching the dust settle. But I would say that, I mentioned this recently, but there's a couple weeks ago on Saturday Night Live, Weekend Update, they did a joke about the new, Disney Plus streaming service, and they said it's called Disney Plus because it's Disney Plus, Netflix plus Amazon plus Hulu. So I think right now you're seeing in the marketplace, customers, there's all this optionality in terms of what you can actually subscribe to, all the various apps that you can subscribe to, but there's also a tremendous amount of customer confusion. So I think that a way to kind of cut through as a programmer for us is to be able to, it sounds kind of way too obvious, and it's obviously much more difficult to do, but to create hits, right? So I think that the way to be able to cut through a lot of the customer confusion is to be able to have really strong brand awareness and and to be able to create content that people would say that your particular, whether you're an AMC or an HBO or anybody else, people will associate your particular brand with great original content. So I think it's going to be a combination in terms of competing. But I think that right now it's an exciting time for me to be up on stage with you guys because our interests are really aligned, right? Because we're competing with the same type of subscribers, and whether you're on the distributor side or whether you're on the original content side or the programmer side, we're in this together right now. So.
And in a sense, do you see yourself as an arms dealer to the pay TV industry? In other words, there are lots more competitors, and the good news is they all want great content, and they will pay handsomely for it. I mean, from your point of view, times are good, no? Everybody wants what you're selling.
You can say okay. It's like a remote be offended. It's okay. You have content to sell.
He doesn't mean arms dealer pejoratively.
No, in no way.
No, I think that I think I just go back to the fact that I will say okay, but I think that it's a great opportunity right now. I mean, we have distribution partners who have an incredible distribution platform and the ability to be able to market our services to those particular customers. And I think, like everybody else here has been saying, the value proposition for a customer in terms of paying $70, $80 for broadband, plus having Netflix subscription, when those subscriptions are going up, plus having a virtual MVPD service, it can range anywhere from $30 to $70. I mean, all of a sudden you're over $100 immediately. So as opposed to paying $150 for a cable subscription where you get everything bundled together. So I mean, a lot of this is consumer behavior, which is very fickle and is based upon trends. But I think the great opportunity for us is to be able to partner with the distribution partners and be able to figure out how to market great original content or great content to people and be able to create customer awareness for those products.
I did try to write a version of the questions to this panel in which every question had a Game of Thrones theme, but it got kind of old real fast, so you would add, no, we haven't gone that route. Let's deep dive into the OTT piece then. So I guess it's completely clear that the biggest change in the last 10 years is this extraordinary flowering of services. I mean, if you walk across this audience, my guess is throw a rock in the air, you'll hear somebody launching an OTT service. It's never been easy. 200-300 plus services in the US market competing for subscribers. Are we in a bubble? Are there just too many of these services? Are we right at the peak of OTT mania and we're going to surf down the upside in the next 5 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Roy, too many services?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think more to the point, I saw the first article that I've been expecting to see for a couple of years, a couple of weeks ago. The headline was "The Return of the Big Money," and that's that I think is that's where we're headed. Everything got disaggregated because we had, to Bob's point, right? We're the a la carte bundle, right? That's been the cycle. We're on one end of the curve, and then they go again.
Gary, too many services? Are we in a bubble?
I think it's a barbell. I think in terms of people racing to have the massive share of the customer wallet, which I would say we tend to have, I think that's getting oversaturated right now. You have a significant number of the virtual MVPDs actually starting to decline their growth already. You have some that are still growing, Hulu still growing, I think YouTube still growing, but the other ones are under a lot of pressure right now, and their margins are shrinking. They're rapidly pulling out content, trying to figure out the right model, because they're trying to replicate what we have over our network, right? So they're saying, okay, now I don't have to put a satellite on the roof. I'm going to do these types of businesses to cut the cost to deliver the same service. And so that's saturated. But I do think with better and better aggregation models out there, whether it's Roku channel or what Samsung's doing, etc., on the other side of the barbell, I still think you're going to see continued growth in niche services. And then the question is, what does it take to be a successful niche service? Is it a really good aggregation ad model, which I think is a little too tied to rights, or is it a direct-to-consumer model, where you own content that has value, or you own a long-term hold on rights? And I still think you'll see growth of 20-30% of these niche services over the next 3 years or so, and then you'll see that settle off.
Well, I guess that's 20-30% of today, at least, fairly small subscriber bases. I mean, a lot of these services are hovering around.
And that's why owners' economics matter. That's why the structure of these companies and how they distribute is very important. And that's why also, I wouldn't want to put you on the spot, but the question is, how much more money do you take home by wholesaling through a distributor that does marketing, customer care, technical delivery, versus how much money do you make by actually building all of that yourself, and in some cases licensing content, and then having to deliver that directly to the consumer? So that's going to be the driver of who survives on that end of the barbell. And then who survives on the larger end of the barbell, honestly, are people that have ancillary businesses that have high margins.
Right.
Because video has really poor margins right now, especially if you're licensing content. So that's how I look at the saturation point.
I think that's the key right there. I mean, as any cable provider will tell you, that if you look at your video business, the margins are going down. There are some that just gave up and said we're out. Cable One that they're looking at. I don't think that's the way to go, but I think you have to continue to compete. But I think it is. I mean, I was on the programming side for most of my life, and to have other people to sell to in the room would have been terrific. There's no doubt about that. But I think, the challenge, obviously, for the content guys is that balance. You love our business, but I ain't going to guarantee it to you anymore. Because you're doing this over here. And how much exclusivity do you have? And, I ran a direct-to-consumer business way before you should have. And it was really hard. The carrot costs alone killed you. All those things that are inherent in the business. So why I said it's a bubble, I think you're going to see a lot of these guys try to get into it. They're going to blow through their libraries. They're going to blow through their marketing dollars, and they're going to turn back to traditional aggregators and say, please take my service.
And that ultimately is sort of one of the big questions. Is what you're seeing right now is the first wave of these things, right? And a couple of them clearly have achieved scale, but a lot of them haven't. The second wave will be different. And that's when I think we'll really know what we're looking at. But there's a next generation of these things coming.
I mean, I find with a lot of clients that there's a view starting to emerge that despite all the OTT hype, the end state, the kind of stage we settle into, may actually not look that different. We'll still be distributing these services via pay TV platforms. It'll be a different kind of aggregation. We'll have direct-to-consumer businesses, but for lots of us, those won't be huge Netflix-scale businesses. They'll be smaller niche offerings. Helpful, they plug a few financial holes, they fill in a window, but not game-changing. The industry will probably look not that dissimilar. I mean, Roy, would you subscribe to that view?
I do. I think that when I think of OTT services and the proliferation of those services that are available today, I think of very. I don't necessarily mean this in a negative way, but I think a very solitary behavior, right? It's like I want to subscribe to a particular niche classified service because I love British teen dramas, for example, right? So, or I want to be able to go and subscribe to a particular service and watch binge 10 hours of television, along the weekend. But I think. You mentioned Game of Thrones before, joked about it, but I mean, it's a cultural phenomenon right now. So I think that you're going to see OTT solipsistic behavior, the consumer trends, I think, will swing and the pendulum will swing again, where people are going to crave connection, right? And whether that's through talking about different shows and social media. I mean, for example, I have HBO now, I have HBO Go. I could watch Game of Thrones whenever I wanted to watch it, but a couple of my friends and I decided that we wanted to watch it together. We wanted to watch it live because there's a sense of community in that. So I think, as corny, as cheesy as that might sound, I think, live event television is something that people will probably continue to like, and the pendulum will probably swing back to where people want to feel connected to each other.
And just quickly, you operate some of these niche OTT services, things like Acorn.
Yeah.
What are they doing to your bottom line? I mean, what's the kind of business plan for a service like that that gets it to a point of being interesting financially in the mix?
Sure. I think our company philosophy has always been, we don't want to be static. We want to be able to change with the times. We want to be able to meet customers, where they are in various different platforms. So I think right now we're very much in the experimental stage right now, right? So we have, in addition to the niche SVOD services, we also have AMC Premiere, which is ad-free AMC, which is effectively disrupting our complete business model because half of our company's revenue comes from ad revenue. So I think that we're experimenting. We're figuring out. Other ways to be able to create incremental revenue for our business, but I think I would be we certainly hadn't figured out the perfect sauce right now, but I think we're experimenting. I think the important thing is we're being flexible in terms of how we see content and how we see platforms where people want to be able to consume that content.
Gary, you mentioned the kind of virtual MVPD services. I think it's probably fair to say that the industry's views on these services are best mixed. Some people would say there's no differentiation, they're hugely loss-making, we're kind of taking high ARPU subs and spinning them down to low ARPU services, or in some cases we're just losing high and low ARPU subscribers. Do you see these becoming kind of viable products?
I think the model is somewhat viable. I think the real key is you're dealing with a a sea change on how people access content. So the fact that you don't need a set-top box, that matters to people, okay? That's a part of our business that we have to look at, and it's a big part of our business. And look, we're bullish on what we offer, and we think we'll be able to compete in a number of different ways. And our CEO has been public about the fact that we think that these models can coexist, and we can be a part of all of that entire market. But my overall view is that it's completely viable. I don't want people to think we're up here in denial that the business is under challenge, that it's challenged. I'm just making the point that I think where you're going to end up and what's going to matter aren't the players. What you're going to see is you're going to see more smaller bundles, multiple bundles, better aggregation, and easier access, onboarding and offboarding. And whoever provides that is going to do very well. And it honestly doesn't necessarily, I believe it's going to be us, but it could be someone that doesn't offer a traditional subscription model as a price of entry. Right? It could be someone that has a great OS and you buy the hardware, and that's how it works. And so I hopefully answered your question a little bit, but my view is that what they're doing is admirable. I think it's great. I think it's hard to make money doing that. And so I think it's going to become a financial decision in the next couple of years about whether it's worth it for some of those companies, especially people who are standalone.
Oh, you look like you want to...
Yeah, I think there's going to be winners. Like anything we talked about earlier. Satellite guys didn't go away. There was one that went away. And telcos didn't go away. They've changed. AT&T decided they didn't buy one of those satellite guys. But there's going to be winners in that virtual MVPD space. No doubt about it. And that's okay. Because, again, from our perspective, still we put up in, that's fine. But I think what you're going to see is a lot of the cost structure of premium subscription television is so high that it's, the allure of an MVPD was you don't have to pay for things you don't want. It's going to be less expensive. And what they found is they can't sell against price. They can't make the price work for the content they need to have. And so that's, the big players are going to be able to do that. What Sinclair's doing is very unique. It's different than what, I'm not going to mention his, but many other MVPs.
Scott, tell us what Sinclair is doing, because they're doing something quite different.
Free commercial, yeah, let's go. So we launched Skirt to our Sinclair for Flavor in January, thank you. We're now 30 plus channels of free TV available on big 6 platforms, Roku, Fire, tvOS, iOS, Android, desktop, yes, very much. The thing that we're featuring within that service is a local channel. The development we call the channel 1, the official name of the Stir City channels. But on the day in January, we launched effectively 79 new local channels.
And what's interesting is you're doing something very distinctive. I mean, when you compare what you're offering to, say, other services, most services aren't offering what you offer.
Well, I think that's, goes to our legacy history as, a very large broadcaster. We have a very large news operation, and that gives us a lot of unique assets from which we can build a service like this. And so,
but you're doing something unique, right? You're not just saying, okay, it's just instead of over the air or through retrans, you're not just putting the signal up. You're doing some unique things on the platform. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a free virtual MVPD, and it mixes on-demand content, live content, but the local part of it really gives us the ability to do 2 things. One is address a need in the marketplace. Nobody was doing local and OTT at scale. And the other is sales. We're really good at local ad sales.
And just briefly, when you think about the customer or the audience, the users of the service, what else do you envisage they have? Is this something that traditional pay TV subs want? Is this something for people who maybe have got Netflix and a few other things as well? Who's the end user you have in mind?
Well, I mean, look, the part of the segment of the audience that we haven't really talked about here, the segment of the business we haven't really talked about is broadcasting. And if you look outside the United States, if you look at the UK, the platforms like Freeview, free over-the-air digital television, when well implemented, has a material role in the marketplace. I don't think we're allowed to do one of these panels. This is Claire exactly not mentioning ESC 3.0. But there's a reason. That's a game-changing piece of technology. The number of channels that can be delivered free over the air to consumers in that environment is extraordinary. And will all of those channels be good? No. Sorry. But there will be a lot of them. And that has a big impact on the marketplace. And that's a lot of what Stir is leading us into that one.
But you said something very important. You rattled off all your platforms that you run. It's very important you have to be on those platforms. And that's the point. I think the cable industry, I think Charter's definitely done this. Comcast is doing it. I think we're doing the same thing. We look at that and say, great, we don't necessarily distribute this the way we traditionally would, but we have to have this offering to our customers. We're not going to have every one of them. We're going to pick and choose. But I mean, we've added Amazon, we've added Netflix, we've added BBC, we've added, so we'll look at all those different things to add to our platform to give the consumer that choice.
This gets us into the big question, which I suspect will come up again and again and again over the next couple of days. How do we reinvent the aggregation model? I hear people talk about super aggregators, re-aggregators, disaggregators. There's a lot of talk about aggregation. I mean, Roy, you're obviously part of aggregating offerings across lots of different platforms. What's your sense of how aggregation is going to change in the next few years as competition intensifies, as more and more services roll out?
Yeah, sure. I think, listen, I think even the aggregators are getting involved, for example, in the original content, right? So Apple launched Apple video service, talking about all the money they want to invest into original programming. I think even aggregators are realizing that there's different ways to make money. I think and different ways to create a connection with the customer. And I think as you kind of see other people dabble in the original content space, I think what you'll see is clearly there will be winners, and I think that what people are realizing, including Netflix, is that creating great original content that resonates with people is a very difficult thing to do, right? So there's no algorithm that's going to be able to help you create the perfect show that's going to resonate with people. So I think, I guess I'm not really answering directly your question, but I'm just answering the piece of the fact that, it's unclear who an aggregator is today and who an aggregator will be going forward. And I think a lot of those folks that do survive are going to be folks that have great original content.
Do you look at people like Roku, Samsung, Amazon as just another route to your customers? Are they just another platform? Or is there something more distinctive about them? Do you worry about new gatekeepers?
Yeah, sure. I think it's, I'm going to go back to my default answer from before in the sense that I think it's a really important question, but I think that it's tough to even know who a gatekeeper is today, right? Because I think it's something truly a pure play aggregator, or are they going to be something that's going to be a competitor with us and create original content? But I think that right now it's important for us to be able to, again, meet customers where they want to be. So it's understanding consumer demand, understanding consumer trends, and understanding also having faith that the traditional cable level is not going to go away anytime soon, but we do want to be able to be these platforms that are experimenting right now with who they want to be going forward.
Gary, then, John, how are you rethinking aggregation? I mean, let's be more specific. I talk to pay TV operators who say, we're going to basically have 3 different types of offers. We're going to have a traditional full-fat pay TV, because there's still a market for that. Lots of people want the channels, they want the services. There'll be some OTT things in the mix, but it'll be not that different. We're going to have a cheap offer where somebody will just plug a broadband connection into their own device. We'll sell them broadband, that's a great high margin product, they can pick and choose what they want. We may do some deals with those people, but that's the kind of low-end offer. And then we'll have a kind of high-end, super funky box, something a bit more expensive and premium for people who want something extra. Do you buy that?
That last one, I'm not sure we're focused on.
Right.
Look at the full bundle as that. It's full service. It's DVR. It's what most people want still today. And yeah, sure. We have a huge amount of broadband-only subs, and we would love to get them into our video ecosystem, sort of creating offerings and services that we think are appealing to them. We're also doing mobile, right? I mean, there's a number of things we're trying to do for that base. I think in the middle is really just more of a disaggregation of what existed. So, HBO used to be an a la carte add-on. Okay, so if that's Acorn TV tomorrow, so be it, right? And so it's more about the technical capabilities. Do we have the ability, given the rights requirements of delivery and the nature of IP and the app ecosystem? Can we support all of that? I think that's all that matters right now. We're building those capabilities right now. X1 has done a good job of building that as well. So I guess I would just finish by saying, you used to have Cinemax and HBO, etc., and it would be added on to an expanded basic package. And then at some point, we all looked around and said, hey, why don't we just make silver? And silver is one price, you get all these services in there, and it's great. Now, a lot of people still want silver. Well, if they don't want silver, then we just go back to giving them an option to pick a core package along with adding on as they wish. The question is, how do we make it easy for them to add on? So that middle area to me is a little more down from the full all-in bundle. I mean, I don't think it looks very different. I mean,
Well, look, in Europe, lots of traditional pay TV businesses, let's say especially some of the telcos, have kind of looked at what they're doing in pay TV and said, well, we used to think we could make money through this aggregation model, but actually it turns out there are lots of other aggregators out there, and lots of them are better at aggregating than we were. So we're just going to focus on being a big fat dumb pie, and we'll offer a bunch of stuff, and people will pick a la carte, but that's our model. Do you see some of that?
I mean, from our perspective, we don't look at ourselves as just that, we're just going to become a big dumb pipe and supply people. Done is really a poor choice of words for broadband, but
Clever, fast, intelligent. Fast.
yeah, all those things. Make me feel like let's date for a while. The thing about that, though, is I think you look at, as Gary's saying, the bundling thing is interesting because it really, the good thing about having direct-to-consumer is it's broken up a lot of traditional issues that were there. And going with due respect to my friends at ESPN is the biggest blocker to having smaller packages because they had to be in the most widely dispersed package, and they were one of the most expensive services. They delivered the best content, there's no doubt about that. But from an operator standpoint, there were a lot of blockers to be able to move back to what the consumer wanted. And I think that's where we're looking at is, as the technology gets better, as our subscriber platforms that allow the consumer to have real-time subscription, real-time cancellation, those type of things, I think we should be offering a lot more different bundles than we are today. And that benefits the content owners. And I know that's one of the things we're going to talk about, but it really is, what are we providing to the customer? We're providing content, we're providing brands.
yeah, I mean, you're going to have Roku and these other players doing the same thing. At some point, you're going to say, how can I best put this selection of content based on what these customers want in front of them in the best deal possible. And so it'll all migrate to some sort of maybe a little less than a big bundle, but it'll be some time.
So you have a user experience issue now, right? Apps are a great paradigm for phones. They're far less interesting on TVs, right? It's a fact of business now. It's a fact of how we distribute now. If you look at what's going on in the marketplace, there are a number of efforts to kind of head that off in the past. People who are trying to head that off in the past, and or people who have what I would describe as broader billing relationships with consumers, federated billing relationships, or billing relationships. Those are the people that are in a very good position to build a big bundle and deliver to consumers.
The big change, I imagine, if I was a content provider, is that most of these new platforms are not offering me a per sub carriage fee. They want to do a revenue share. It's a kind of app store model. And that, as a content provider, that really shifts the balance of risk. I'm paying a 30% flat rate for each sub. The good news, that probably comes from the distribution costs, and there's just another gateway, but it's all risk on my balance sheet, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think, you have different kinds of content, right? You have, content, most content in sort of its natural state seeks ubiquity, right? Anything that's ad supported is seeking the largest audience possible. I would argue that most content fits into that category. There's very little content that moves an audience and moves an audience's checkbook. One of the few that are easy to point to are sports. Live sports are still the most commanding in terms of concurrent live audience. And being the ad sales business, that's what we're looking for.
How is it charted and it evolved its payments for content? Will you still be paying out similar sums of money to the same volume of channel providers 5 years from now?
I can't comment too much on that. I do think we did talk about the macro trends, which I would say, which is margins are tightening, so flexibility in how we package and our ability to make sure that video in and of itself as a bundle is viable is important. So
by flexibility there, you mean you want to pay less?
I think flexibility is, we'd like to make sure that we're able to give customers what they want and no more than what they want. And everyone would like to pay a fair price for that on all ends, and we want our content providers to make money. I think that's the way I'd leave that. I think overall, I do think that the incremental cost pressures on these niche partners, and even large partners, to go direct to consumer, I think hopefully will give new partners interest, and I've seen it, in our ability to deliver what we deliver really well. So they can focus on what they're good at. I mean, a lot of these companies are not tech companies, okay? Someone said that about Disney Plus. Now Disney has to be a technology company. They need to be a marketing, need to be a company that's doing customer care, etc. So we think we add a lot to the mix, and as a result, we think economics will shift accordingly to be a win for everyone.
So
I think that's, well, I'll leave that.
Summarising brutally, Gary wants to pay less for your content. Are you happy to rethink your model? Is AMC going to take on more risk as you build out these direct-to-consumer relationships?
Well, I guess I'll say two things. One is just about appreciating that margins on video are becoming slimmer. Realize this happening in the industry, but also recognizing that companies that also provide broadband, having video is an incredibly powerful retention tool, and being able to manage customer relationship is also something that's incredibly powerful going forward. We're competing with others. So I would say that at a high level, and I'd also say that we always talk about consumer choice, but now that there's all this proliferation of choice, and there's so much choice out there, it's hard to say whether that's something that consumers really want. I mean, for example, a la carte, mandated by Canadian Regulatory Authority, it's been around in Canada for a number of years, but it hasn't taken off, right? So I think right now what people are looking for credibility, they're looking for brand credibility. So I think that, for us, AMC, we're small, we have 5 networks, in your family. So I think it's, not quite in the same situation as other programmers, but I think people are looking for that shorthand, right? I think customers, I think increasingly going forward, we're going to be able to want that shorthand to be able to understand what quality is and be able to go to a particular network.
Do you think there's a segment of the market which will just say, okay, I'm going to take Disney Plus, Hulu, and the ESPN service. I've got Netflix, and I'll have Amazon as well. But that's kind of me done. I mean, I might take 1 or 2 niche things, but my special interests. But that, for a lot of people, that's a pretty good
they'll
one.
broadcast through a stir, or they'll get an antenna.
Yeah.
Sure.
I guess where that takes me then is when we look at the huge sort of army of, back to Game of Thrones, when we look at the huge army of content brands, channel brands, are we going to see some consolidation? I mean, more of this over the next 5 years? There are just too many, I would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, back in the day, Tom Christie's here from Showtime, remember these days, we created a lot of channels because there was no on-demand. Remember, it was virtual pay-per-view, that kind of thing, so you staggered everything like this. The stars where Glassberg need all those channels? Do you know that you're subscribing to that channel? Or do you need stars? Do you need AMC? Or are you binging? Are you binging Game of Thrones or are you binging HBO? And would you binge HBO, Game of Thrones regardless of where it was? Yes. You wouldn't buy HBO just because of it.
And that's a challenge for lots of channel brands, that their brands are defined by 4, 5, 6 shows, but obviously their schedules comprise many more shows than that.
Right.
And those shows, you may as well just take those 6 shows and put them in an on-demand product.
Well, that's the question: is does AMC need 1 channel and and all the on demand? And that gives them a lot of value. If they put advertising in and monetize, wouldn't they rather have that rather than having transponding space and all those costs that are associated with on your channel distribution? They kind of just broadcast is a barter channel for movies. For update TV.
Well, I mean, you see,
You have to have
you
something
see
to tell
on
you what's on.
OTT now, you see channels that are 1 show, right? Literally,
Right,
1
you see
show,
together.
yeah, right? And run as a 24-hour channel. In a world where on the broadcasting side, you could potentially have hundreds of free over-the-air channels, then on the OTT front, you can have literally an unlimited number of channels comprised of very little content, just channelized, that could replicate itself.
So, I mean, Roy, is winter coming for the channel brands? Will your portfolio be, do you think, if you look at the big channel brand providers, and as Bob says, a lot of people, when we went from analog to digital, doubled, tripled, quadrupled the number of channels they offered. I kind of lose track of how many channels some of the big providers have. Are we going to see a huge whittling down as some of these channels just switch into smaller, more coherent OTT packages rather than these kind of slightly odd schedules that some have?
I think it's a difficult question to answer. I would say...
Say yes.
I'll say no on behalf of my company, but I think, listen, I really do believe there's something to customer shorthand in terms of what quality programming is, right? So I think it's just so overwhelming. There's so many different options as to what to watch. So I think, you're right. I mean, it's HBO, Game of Thrones, it depends on how people see it, but I think at the same time, even if somebody, churns off of HBO now, for example, on a go-forward basis, if HBO comes out with a new show, they can say, oh, Game of Thrones was a terrific show. HBO invested a lot of time and money into that particular show, and I think that this particular new show from HBO will also be really good.
Okay, we are running dangerously short of time. We have a few themes.
I think we might see if there's some questions. We can probably take a couple. I don't know if there are mics anywhere. Yes, there are. There are some mics. Does anyone have a question for our panel? Hopefully with Game of Thrones team. Or have we just done everything? Have we answered everything? There are
no questions. Right, let's push on. I have two more questions that I was going to sort of dive into. First of all, pay TV. I think sort of Kevin mentioned earlier that we need to kind of rethink what we mean by it. Do you have any sort of better terms that we might think about using?
TV.
Just TV.
It's entertainment.
It is honestly, I think it's one of the things we spend the most time arguing about is what the hell we call these things.
What's pay versus premium?
Yeah, pay versus premium, like if it's delivered to a phone over this kind of network, is that still TV? It's, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. Or it's news, or it's sports. I think that's, I think that's how people look at it, how consumers look at it.
The interesting, if you look at our UIs, we now have TV and movies as categories.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that these movies we can't call TV, even though it was TV. Is HBO TV?
Visual entertainment.
Yeah, I mean,
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
It doesn't work. But I think that's the interesting.
Film
thing. Back in the day, television was you went to television if you couldn't get a job in movies. Now it's the other way around. Now you want these mega series.
And I was confused to see on Netflix, I think last week, that Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight appeared, but it's gone from movies into TV and is now 4 parts.
There you go.
I'm confused.
I don't think PTV's that bad, just for the record. I think
It's all right.
fine, it's good. I think people knew enough to come. So,
Yes.
so the name is about how you get people in the door, so if it worked, then stick with it.
TV you pay for.
Do what you want.
TV.
Let's end on a kind of positive note. So, Gary, when you think about...
This whole thing was positive.
It was
positive.
positive. It was positive. Well, you're cutting costs, you're consolidating. We'll come back to that. So, looking at over 2020s, what are the kind of big opportunities that you think, as an industry, we should be excited about? What do you see as the kind of the next wave of products that can help pay TV have a fantastic next decade?
So I think, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, better aggregation, which involves search and discovery capabilities, being able to sort of help people stay in the environment, same way AMC tries to keep you on their channel. I think access is very important. I think different companies in our ilk have decided to embrace third-party devices, and some haven't. We've been on more third-party devices. That's important. And I think just smarter, more targeted packaging. They don't say, it may sound to the group here very basic, but I think all three of those, there's a lot of innovation you can do in those spaces. And that's where we're going to be investing.
And the exciting thing for me is that what you've just described is a huge improvement on where we are today. I mean,
Sure.
as a customer of a pay TV provider, that's all good. I mean, I have more choice, better services.
We're all very excited, people at Charter, about the roadmap we're trying to build, we're trying to do. We think it's great. We think it's exciting. And we think we're going to be a viable player forever, and we will actually grow. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
It's all good. Scott, what should we be excited about in the next decade?
Well, I think the rollout of digital broadcasting. I think that's really, where we've seen that happen in other places in the world, it's really changed the dynamic in the marketplace. And, that's a major point of focus for us in the next 3 to X years.
And how's that going to change what you do? How do you see that transforming the Sinclair model?
Well, I mean, with ATSC 3.0, you get all of these capabilities that you would have in IP broadcasting. So you can target advertising, you can target content, you can deliver everything from multiple camera angles on a sporting broadcast at once to a customized newscast. It's a very exciting evolution of technology, but in this context, in terms of talking about bundles and channels, it, at a very basic level, offers us the ability to deliver, a multiple of the channels we can deliver today. And, my antenna in my office in Santa Monica gets 167 free channels. And, one of them's a Hyundai commercial on the loop. But there's enough of them that are good and useful that it's already starting to have an impact in the marketplace. You increase that capacity by, not quite an order of magnitude, something approaching it.
Okay. Roy, what should we get excited about in the next decade?
Yeah. The more technological innovation that we see from distributor partners, whether it's Spectrum's app or whether it's X1 or Comcast, the better it is for us. So the better search discovery, better UIs, and I think on our side, just continue to create really great original programming, but also figuring out if there's particular platforms where we can have different content and different types of content to be able to meet users where they want to be.
Well, final word, what are you excited about in the 2020s? Professionally.
I think that when you look at the consumer's going to have all these great choices, and that's good. But I think the changes that are going to take place are you're going to have consumers say, I want cheap boxes, I want cheap access, I want cheap bundles, and they will continue to try to find this. And those that can do all the things that Gary talked about, which is not just have it, but how you deliver it. And what is the experience that the consumer has? Everyone in this room can go and get a cheap mobile service they want on a cheap phone, if you want. But do you want that service when you travel around the country or internationally or what have you? So you can always get cheaper. But I think what you're going to see is an evolution of consumers being able to say, I can get on this device, I can get this device, and I can buy this and that content. And I think that we will be in a consumer-driven content world.
It's not going to be boring. Ladies and gentlemen, a massive thank you to our panel. I don't think I've seen it.